If JC Dubeau is known, it's somewhat as a dark horse. Search for JC online and you won't find any trip reports or beta spraying, but as a soloist with a selfie stick, he's surprisingly active on Instagram for someone who likes to keep a low profile. JC is also an older athlete who doesn't train or project, but he will likely send yours if you let him. So who is this guy? In this conversation, we talk about how there's old and there's bold, but there are no old, bold climbers, his 5 goes rules and other principles to climb by, climbing without a rope more often than with, designing gear, and much more. Before our chat, I'd like to give a shout out to our new members, Kai, Alex, Max, James, Tim, Theo, Matt, Zach, Kevin, Chris, Jonathan, and David. Thanks to you and everyone who supports the podcast and online magazine. This is a community-supported project, so your contribution literally helps make the thing. If you're not yet a member, consider joining at iceicebeta.com. We'll hop to the interview shortly after a quick message from our sponsors. What do you get when you combine 30 years of ice climbing and product design chops? Well, if you're into gloves, you get a boutique climbing brand on a mission to produce the best ice climbing and dry tooling gloves around. Doug, June, and the rest of the team spare no expense in the pursuit of durable, dexterous, and waterproof. Best yet, they are made from recycled textiles, which saves waste from the landfill, and they are robustly built so they won't end up there anytime soon. To learn more about your friend in the cold, head to aniu.com. That is ANIIU.com. We get it. For us, ice season never really ends. It just kind of blends between rock, plastic, and plywood until waterfalls freeze over again. No matter how you climb in the off-season, Furnace Industries keeps you going till your next bout of screaming barfies. With their gym-safe dry ice evolutions, you can keep up your fitness indoors. And if you like to challenge yourself on your home wall, they have the largest variety of dry tool holds in America. Check out their full lineup of ice and dry tooling gear at furnace-industries.com. Because for us, it's always ice season. There was an interesting dynamic because I always do a little bit of research when I'm talking with guests, and you had really great imagery on your Instagram. But besides that, like usually when like someone has like really good images, there's usually like an associated portfolio or something, and maybe you're just waiting to make your portfolio. Maybe that's in your the next downtime. But I couldn't find many like articles or anything like that. And do you try to keep, like, outside of like the visuals, do you try to keep a low profile?
Yeah, it's I'm an introvert, so not super social, just keep to myself most of the time. It takes a lot to open up, so it's always been that. It's funny, I don't like the publicity and all that. And like the photos, it was the people wanting to see, like they knew what I was doing, but they really wanted to see what I was doing. And then the old hanging off something really steep and grabbing the phone and hanging out and doing a selfie. Just, I think I even got to the point where it's like, this is really dumb. That something's going to happen one of these days. Like, so hence the Insta 360 camera. I've had a lot of people sort of go, yeah, they're awesome photos. You should sort of try and get some of those published. I'm like, it'd actually be really cool to do that. But I'm just like, that's a lot of time and effort. And I have thought about doing like a website or something, but again, same thing. It's like I'd like to do it, but it's time I don't want to spend, and I don't really want to give it to somebody else to do. But I've got a bunch of friends that have gone that way, so they've just got the blogs, and it's pretty much every week it's something new gets popped up. But yeah, I figure for me, it's not who I am. Like I just like taking cool shots, and you get a lot of footage, and there's a lot of stuff I miss that I'm just like, okay, like the files are always there. I can always go back through and have a look at. But I just sort of enjoy being like a nobody on the social media world aside from like Instagram and Facebook. So people know how to find me if they're looking for me. And like with the new forecast lineup for this year, I had 3 emails or 3 messages yesterday asking about tools. So I'm like, that's actually pretty cool. And like of the new tools that just came out, so it wasn't of the nor'easters. There's people that had nor'easters looking for the Mesos or the Jetstream, and so that was actually, I was like, this is like on the way climbing. I was like, hang on, no, I gotta send a couple messages out just to stay on top of things. The 2 of the guys that I was chatting with were I'd known, but the other person I'm like, we had sort of mutual friends. But yeah, it was actually pretty cool to sort of meet somebody random going like, yeah, it's like, I know what you're doing. I see your tools you're on. It's like, what do you think of them? I think I'd say most people know how to get in touch with me if like in those circles. So I think, yeah, more social media platforms and any of that stuff, that just means more time. And it's funny, like I guess the running joke is I tried to get out of the bike industry and retire and loved my job, but I needed a change. And the person I'm working for now, we'd been sort of talking for a couple of years about it, and it was just sort of a timing thing. But I went from working 50 to 60 hours a week to 27, 29 hours, going, I should have so much free time on my hands, and I don't. And I think that free time is just equated to more play time. And yeah, I'm just like, okay, I want to keep things quiet on the social side of things. And if you do enough digging, you'll find some like old mountain bike racing results and old photos from decades ago. But yeah, otherwise I
didn't go down the mountain biking or the bike racing rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But yeah, like no trip reports, nothing like that. And you have to piece it together. You have to look at like what you're climbing and sort of fill in the gaps. But I don't like social media. I find it a time suck, and I find it personally, it's like too easy to just get sapped into this. And with very little benefit. But I think if you can set the parameters for what you want out of it, and you can be very diligent about it, yeah, sure, it's great. Like it does allow that, it facilitates meeting random people.
Yeah.
And the number of people that I've been able to connect with because of just the podcast, it's been great, hearing all these different stories about what's going on around the world, really. But outside of that, like, for me, it's the human connection.
Yeah.
So it facilitates that, but that's so like secondary or tertiary now. It's just, it's like it should be the primary benefit, but it just gets washed away.
Yeah. I found I really try to limit myself to like maybe 15 minutes on Instagram in a day and 10, 15 minutes on Facebook. And like Facebook, I pretty much use for the forums, like for like the rock climbing, the ice climbing forums, and then Instagram. Yeah. So it is really cool to sort of see where people are at, what they're doing. It has opened up a lot of doors with like, oh, I'm going to be in your area, are you around? And so it's opened up a lot of connections that way. But yeah, so I've been actually pretty good with that. And I think as long as you're setting your time frames that you're going to spend on it. But yeah, the realm of social media, it's like it's pros and cons.
But double-edged sword, to put it nicely, it's like a very imbalanced double-edged sword where it's mostly negative. But I was reading a statistic, I think it was by the WHO, and globally they say that 90% of the average person's day is spent indoors. And I imagine in certain economies, like what percentage of that time indoors is on computers, right? So it's like how disconnected you are or can be from just like the natural wild spaces that we basically through our history adapted to. And I was just calculating quickly in my own head from this past week, like how much time did I actually spend outdoors? And it's super embarrassing. It was less than 10%.
Oh, jeez.
Because I didn't go on like a hike last week, and that's usually where I get like 7-8+ hours outside.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I did a few hour runs, and then I went climbing one day, but like it was like almost 175 hours in a week. So like, damn, that's not. Damn it.
Yeah, and I'm outside as much as I can be during the week. So
yeah,
it's funny, like living in the Bow Valley, you always call it the Canmore bubble or the Bow Valley bubble. It's just a world of its own. So it's just, you look at the number of high caliber athletes here. There is definitely that FOMO effect here. And like, I don't get into that. I'm just like, I go out and I do stuff when I want, but everybody's just like, oh, it's a nice day, I got to do this. And it's like, my friends are doing this, I got to go out and do this with them. But it's so easy to get out, like whether it's like before work, after work. I think the FOMO more for me is more, it's just like our seasons are so short here. With how short our seasons are, in the riding world out here, it's wild because everybody's jonesing to get out. And then the weather's been, it was so bad. And you're like, okay, this sucks. So you get to the point where you're like, okay, it's raining, but it's not miserable. So you go out and ride. And then you get 2 months of good riding and then your bike season's done because it cold sets in. On the climbing side, it's sort of the same thing. It's like, oh, it's a nice day. Let's go outside. And here it's just, you're trying to do stuff every day. I think that's sort of really nice because it's, if you're in the big city and stuff like that, it's just that it's not even the sedentary life, but it's just like the busy life really sort of takes over more. So you do find like the differences in the lifestyles are more.
There's an inertia of comfort.
Yeah.
And I've gotten into this mindset of, I don't want to call it optimizing because I'm definitely not optimizing, but I'm like much more willing to go to the gym where I know I'm going to get like a good workout in. Like I have my plan, I have what I want to get out of it done, and I can be efficient because I'd rather not spend time in the gym. So if I'm going to go to the gym, I want to, a good hour and just like bang it out.
Yeah.
But then, in the past few months, it would be that tension where like, well, I'd want to go outside, but it's going to be an hour to drive there. And then, like faff around a bit and then yada, yada, yada. It's crazy to me that calculation was so potent where I would just be like, fuck it, I'll just go to the gym.
Yeah.
And it's like training for what? Like I have like these vague goals of what I'm training for. And it just sort of like took priority. And now I'm just like thinking about it in retrospect where, man, I should just be spending more time outside. The calculation that I had of like less than 10% of my time outside is really just kind of eating at me today.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I was trying to think about that. Like it's been an interesting summer for me because like normally I'll go and get on a bunch of hard sport or gear routes and have fun doing it. And this is that year where like I haven't climbed anything really hard, but my one buddy I've been mentoring a bit on adventure climbing and putting holes in rock and creating new routes and retrofitting things. And it's been interesting because we're at that point. The one area that we're sort of reviving and sort of rebuilding is or developing at. We're there in the evenings. It's like, oh yeah, we don't need the headlamps. We'll be down before dark. I think 9 times out of 10, we're way off the ground going, shit, we should have our headlamps. And like last night was the good reminder that like I actually put mine in my bag going, yeah, we're going to go do some easy routes so I can sort of get like a rough bearing of where I've got to put the route lines on the map. And sure enough, we're 5 pitches up and it's starting to get dark and get a couple of wraps down. And as he's coming down, I put my headlamp on and he's like, oh, nice headlamp. And it's like, where's yours? Like down on the pack. And like, sure enough, we get down to the ground as it's dark. And he's like, it gets darker really quick out here. And it's like, yeah, like 4 minutes a day. But yeah, it's wild. Like we're coming down like every night. And I think we were out for about 4 hours yesterday going, and that's like pretty much every time we go out, it's about 4 or 5 hours in the evenings. So you're sort of pushing the days and it's been fun. Like you're getting a workout, but you're just sort of, it's just a fun, enjoyable way to spend the time outside.
In climbing, there can be seasons to it, right? Sometimes you really want a project. Sometimes you really want to try hard. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you want to enjoy it. And because of what I do know about you, you do tend to climb hard. You do tend to do bold climbs, and you're known for soloing. But this summer you were just talking about how it's sort of more maybe mentoring, adventure climbing. Doing something else. And I guess for you, do you find that there's a balance between wanting to go a little bit more out there and try hard and then kind of pull back to this? Or I guess where is this sort of adventure-y side coming into things in your opinion?
It's always been there. It has actually been really nice climbing with a rope this year. And part of it's just sort of sharing the knowledge. And I think going and getting on things going, who knows what's going to happen to this? It all started out with one of the guidebook authors. It was a couple of years ago. He's like, oh, there's a route up on this one mountain that I think it would be really good if there were stations on it. it'd be a good moderate. And the one day we'd actually just like talked about going up there, the weather crapped out. So we end up at the gym, and both the first ascensionists are in the gym. And I was just like, funny enough, we were actually going to go get on your route. And the comments were, I was like, oh, that's awesome. And it's like, yeah. It's like, well, we're going to go bolt the stations. And the one author's like, oh, don't worry about the gear because there isn't any. And I just sort of laughed, like, oh yeah, no, like no worries. Like I'm used to Rockies climbing, like minimal gear. Sure enough, there was no gear. Like, like the first pitch had just the rock was bad, and like I'm like, I'm not going to put a pin in something that's not going to hold a sneeze. So I ended up putting 6 widely spaced bolts on. It's only 5/8, but it's just like real 5/8 climbing. And then after that, like the climbing got good, and I guess we're part way up. We're now lost en route, so we're on a new variation, but we've been up that thing like 3 times, and it's just that the climbing's phenomenal. But it's in a big setting, and it was one of those things you're like, well, I'm not too sure about this. This might be a one and done. Get a couple bolts in, get a couple stations, and we'll call it. But that's one of those routes like you're just like, man, I got to go back. Like it's quality, and there's some excitement on it. And we've cleaned off a lot of big death boulders, and it's turning up to be like just a phenomenal route. And I think my buddy got so psyched on that I think that stoke carried over like, into the developing this area that we're at now. And
Okay.
yeah, I think the adventure thing is it's really cool because like we've got like 10 pitches of new climbing in at this one area, and like some mixed stuff and some gear and some hard sport routes, and like it's all ground up stuff. So you're just like, this could be a waste of a lot of bolts, or it could turn out. And everything, like the rock has been phenomenal. And now we're like, I've completely run out of hardware, so it's just waiting for more stuff to show up so like we can continue on. But yeah, I think that was sort of the catalyst for doing the let's not do a crazy hard season and try to let the body recover to some extent. I swear I'm still not recovered from last winter season, but it sort of kept my mind busy. So like I've been like when we were sort of talking earlier with sort of depression and all that, it was trying to figure out like that balance. And I think working with my buddy Noah it's been awesome because we're sort of on the same page, and he wants to learn and wants to adventure. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. It's just like such a great friendship. And the fact that we're sort of both wanting to do this stuff. And it's just like, oh, this is great. Like, so any of the time, and like the one day is just like, well, like, I know we're destroyed, but like, do you want to go back out? Is it too soon? And I was like, oh, that'd be awesome. And it's like, no, I actually need a break. And he's like, well, like, the route's not going to finish itself. And then sure enough, we go up there and finish bolting in the dark. And but it was like, yeah, I'm just like we're just absolutely destroyed, but you still want to just go back and keep plugging away. And it's been really good sort of mental wise. And it's been weird because I've been thinking about soloing things again. And I think with the rock, it's like rock out here is horrible. Like you're never sure. I've had 2 ground falls this year from broken holds, and on stuff that you thought would be solid, and like the typical like nothing broken, but you're just like, well, that could have been really bad. And well, they're sport roots, but they're not sport roots, so they're big multi-pitch things. So it's not like you've got a stick clip or anything like that. And I've sort of been thinking about that a little bit more, going, okay, like I know there's some things I can go do and not really think too much of. But yeah, after having a couple of those falls going, it was just like dumb luck. I think the adventure side of things has been really good. And I do miss the whole soloing on rock, but I think at least finding somebody that's on the same page has been really sort of good. And we're both like, yeah, the summer's just been flying by. And so that it's been good. It's sort of, he's learning a lot. It's been keeping me in check.
So you've been playing a mentor role. Is there much of an age gap?
20 years. roughly between my buddy Noah and I, and then 32 years between my young friend Adam. So yeah, quite an age difference on the ones, and that's actually been really good because he's sort of matured a lot, and it's good to sort of see he's going in the right direction with climbing, and is sort of a sponge for knowledge. So it's always hard to go, don't do what I do, but do what I say, and they both know that I solo things, but it's just the like soloing's dumb. So I'm just like, if you choose to do it, you choose to do it, but it's on your own terms. I don't think it's there for all the glory, but it's the being able to actually teach the actual climbing skills and rope maintenance and efficiency. That's been great. So they're gaining a lot of that. And then with bolting on lead, it's the oh shit factor. How do you drill off of nothing? And so yeah, that's been a lot of fun. So like the whole mentoring side it's been great. And I usually try to find one or two people every year, or like if I don't have anybody on the go. And it's nice sharing the knowledge as a newer climber or somebody that's trying to sort of develop their skills. It's very cliquey out here. It's very hard to meet new people that are willing to teach people. And it's always like, oh, go hire a guide. That goes quite a ways, but it's just if people just want to get out and climb and just sort of learn knowledge, as long as things are done safely. And I'd much sooner teach somebody how to do something safely than just go, yeah, this is not good. You're taking your life into your hands if something goes wrong. So I think that's been a sort of real key thing to sort of keeping me going. And it is nice sort of sharing knowledge and passing it along and making sure people are doing things safely, properly, all that.
I remember listening to an interview with Will Gadd recently, because he's like right down the street from you, right?
Yep.
Like
yeah, he used to live like about 2 blocks away. He's on the other side of the valley these days.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I guess there was a fracas last year where 2 younger guys were like retro bolting a crag or something.
Yes.
And there was like a big hubbub. But he said that, you know, everyone was up in arms, but he reached out to them and like, you know, offered to take them out and show them sort of like how it's done.
Yeah.
And his whole premise was that you know, this is an opportunity to learn and grow, and like we should be, you know, if someone's that motivated, we should be like encouraging and helping them learn how to do it within the local ethics. I don't quite imagine that's the same sort of rationale as you have, but like, have you been seeking these types of relationships for a while now, or like, I guess when did that sort of start?
It's been going on for like decades, like back since like my mountain bike racing days. So I used to do a bunch of coaching, and then I'd help with training like programs for people, like for like off season and stuff. So it's always been around to some extent. And I think in the climbing world, it's just there is something lost with the new generation. And I think the trend is a lot more, especially out here, it's a lot more sport climbing versus traditional or big mountain routes. That's something if you're going in blind, it's like the luck of the draw with whatever happens, and you might get lucky, but like on the flip side of things, there's so many variables that could cause a lot of ill effect. And I think if you got somebody that's going to help teach the skill sets that are required for the outer limit stuff, it's good. And there's forums out there that are people are looking for it, and it takes a lot for me to actually, if somebody's just sort of wanting to learn things but not just wants the information but doesn't want to pursue it really, then it's a little bit harder. But if somebody's like showing interest and really like you see the promise and you see what they're capable of, like to reach out and help them, it's phenomenal. I've climbed with a lot of like very green climbers, and it's people that just want to sort of transition from inside to outside, and you're basically going into like a guiding role where like nothing can happen or nothing can go wrong. But a lot of, especially out here, like with how expensive it is to live in the valley, it's just people don't always have a lot of money. So like they can't afford to go and pay a guide for a day or 2 days. And I think that's where the whole mentorship thing comes into play, where whether you go take them out top roping or go to a sport crag, and you're basically helping them develop their skills and making sure they're doing things safe. And it's been interesting because like you do see the progress where somebody's gone and mentored somebody, and you'll see that progress in the gym, and you see them outside, and you're like, okay, they've actually in the last 2 months they've learned the proper skill sets, so they're safe. And I tend not to go cragging too often just because you see a lot of unsafe things, and most people, if you offer any information, they tend to blow it off. They're just like, oh, I know what I'm doing. And you're like, okay, like I'm just sort of saying, but and it's I think some of that mentality, it's just the friends that have learned incorrectly take their friends out, so that that curve is going the wrong way. And I think that's where the mentorship really does play a part in trying to bring people up to being safe. And I think over the years I've seen and dealt with a lot of accidents, and it's a lot of that stuff could be prevented. It's just had the time been taken to help somebody learn a skill that could have been a 5 minute, here's how you tie a knot properly, and just safety checks and all that. And yeah, that's one of those things that's just sort of been like lost a little bit over time. And I think people are too eager to go from the gym to outside, and you're not used to going, I'm missing all the colors, not being able to read things. And especially when you come into the bigger environments where you're actually trying to read where a line goes that's 10 or more pitches long. I've been way off route at times going, oh shit, I'm somewhere I don't want to be. How do I get out of this situation? If you've got the skills to be able to do it, it's great. If you don't, you don't really always want to think about the consequences of it. So I think, yeah, like I really do enjoy helping people learn skills. Like, so yeah, whether it's sort of in the climbing world, the bike world, ski world, I've done a lot of that stuff for a lot of those activities over the years.
I guess along the lines of progression, and you were saying earlier you've been, you weren't feeling at the beginning of the season that you wanted to solo, but then it's tugging you maybe a little bit more recently. I'm wondering, what was your own path to getting into soloing? And I do want to talk about this past winter in New England. So maybe we can sort of weave towards that direction.
Yeah. I always thought soloing was the dumbest thing. I still think it is. It's one of those things that you don't do it for the fame and glory. Like you do it for yourself, your own personal reasons. I actually still remember the first 2 rock climbs I ever soloed, and they're up in Thunder Bay. And one was called Rockwork Orange, like a 5.9. It was almost like a highball boulder problem. You put your first piece of gear in like about a third of the way up the route. There's a couple cruxy moves, and then you're on the upper third of the route, and it's done. That day, that was my second route that I did, and the first one was just this big off-width crack. That was just like, oh, this is really cool. I'm not going to fall out of it. And I just remember getting up to the top going, oh shit, what am I doing? But it was fun. And so I did that, and I came down and did this 5.9 crack. And I've actually got the photos from them. Like, so it was back, my buddy and I were doing a black and white photography course. And so any of the film that we had left, like any shots that we didn't have, we'd always go and do climbing shots. Like it was just like, they're just random. Like sometimes it'd just be like gear shots or just something fun. And yeah, so those ended up being like the 2 first things I soloed. And it's just like, wow, it was sort of fun to do it, but I'm just like, soloing's dumb. Don't want to do it. And every once in a while I would do something really, it'd just be really easy things like 5.5, 5.6. And it's essentially you're scrambling something. And there was a bunch of years before, probably 4 or 5 years of ice climbing before I went and soloed something. It ended up just being, it was on an easy route because I'd forgotten some gear, being the still new into climbing, and just going, yeah, not doing the gear check at the top of a route. I think that I was terrified on, going like tools that weren't great, crampons that weren't great, protection that you typically had to hammer in more than you were screwing in.
Is there snargs or?
Yeah, snargs, warthogs, all the old school fun. And that never really had any appeal to me, but the fact that I did it, I'm like, okay, I got away with it. But yeah, the rock climbing thing has always sort of been pretty quiet. I think it became like as I got more comfortable with harder routes, that like the easier things, like I wouldn't necessarily solo, or I wouldn't solo things, but like the gear placements became a lot further apart. It was something, yeah, over years it just sort of built, and I was still like, yeah, I don't solo things. I've had, yeah, especially out in the Rockies, like things fall off on you. I did like the one year I was down in Indian Creek, and it was just you found the right hand size for you, and you knew you weren't coming out. So yeah, it was just like one time up, you'd have a pile of gear. Next time up, there'd be a lot less, and the next thing you knew, you were soloing the route. But like you had those never guarantees, but you knew what you were into. I never at that time never really thought about the consequences, and it's just like, and that was back in the okay, this is really cool. That's basically the young dumb phase of my life where it was just sort of more the cool factor. Whereas now, 20, 30 years later, it's like life issues, everything sort of arose. And I remember like one of the first hard routes that I soloed last year was just that, like, I remember being on it and it was up and down, up and down. It's like, well, like I can do it. And I remember topping out going wrong headspace, but I did it. And that was this is really dumb. And that's sort of like when I sort of reassessed sort of what I was doing in as far as sort of climbing things. And then not that much longer, like when my head sort of cleared going, okay, like I sort of stepped it back like a couple grades on ice and just it was easy mileage. And then it was sort of a bit of a freeing. It's funny, they always say free solo, you're free, but it sort of relaxed me. And you're sort of in the moment, so nothing else really matters. Like you're hyper focused on what you're doing. I think at the end of the day, like, I'd be like, okay, I feel good. There was no adrenaline on it. It was just it was all just sort of, you weren't getting pumped up. It was just like, I'm going to go out. If something goes wrong, like if I'm not feeling it, I wrap down, walk away. Climbing into the grade 4 range wasn't bad. Like it was just the likelihood of something going wrong was very, very minimal. You're always very aware of sort of conditions, temperatures, like what the ice is like. So you could sort of, I'm not going to say you're not going to make it safe, but you could sort of have at least a good judgment of what you're dealing with. And I think the call to get onto some harder stuff, it was there. I remember the first like sort of couple of the first harder like steeper routes that I'd gotten onto, and you're going through the crux bits going, okay, I know I can put a screw in it and sit on it anytime I want. I'm not getting tired. I'm not getting freaked out. But I remember getting a little bit pumped going, okay, I just got to relax, get rid of the pump. When that happened, going, okay, like I can just sort of tune everything down and relax and shake out on stuff. I think that sort of opened my eyes to sort of the possibilities of what was capable. So I wasn't like I was just hopping into something gnarly right off the get-go. It was a bit of a progression. It's being very introverted. It was just sort of, it's nice being away from people and just sort of doing my own things. And I think some of it was just like I couldn't find a partner, so I'm like, I'm just going to go out and do my own thing. My girlfriend at the time didn't like that too well, so but I was always like, okay, this is where I'm going. So I'd always leave messages going, this is where I am. I'll call you as soon as I get back into cell service if I'm away, or if you haven't heard from me by this time, it's like, this is where you need to send somebody. Like that was sort of like the selfish me going, it's like, got to go do my own thing. But there's like, now it's like, I still do my own thing, but I find it sort of freeing for me. Like or like I just sort of puts me at peace because I'm just sort of focused on what I'm doing and nothing else really matters at the moment. And it got to the point where like the harder routes I wouldn't say they were a challenge. They were challenging, but they were enjoyable because it was just there was that much more attention that needed to be there to accomplish them. I've backed off enough routes to go like from either not feeling it to, oh shit, I just chopped my rope. So it's been an interesting journey with it. Yeah, I think it's the dumbest thing people can do, but it's something I enjoy doing. Like having a rope on this summer has been great. Like it's just sort of it's been a change. But yeah, I really do miss I guess the freedom of just sort of moving and I guess moving quickly and efficiently on things.
It sounds like you've had two periods of soloing. A younger period where you were trying it, almost trying it, maybe being a little bit ego driven, but also sounding a little bit methodical. I don't know if you were using Indian Creek as like an example or like a sort of an exemplar, like of an ideal situation where you do a crack that really fit your hand, then you do it with less gear, then you would just be like, ah, okay, I'll go for it. So there was like that familiarity with it, and then you said you were talking about getting into ice and then leading harder ice and backing off and then getting more comfortable on harder ice. So you've talked about like I think this is a quote you shared with me last time. It was like you should never climb something that you can't down climb, right? And I think that's it was something that you were sort of abiding by as well. You were saying you could always like put in a screw and just sort of like chill out if you needed to. But you did have a situation where you cut your a rope that you were trailing, things like that. So I guess like in your progression of trying harder things, like what were there instances where you were just like really oh shit, and I guess how did you beyond the familiarity, like how are you adapting to the medium to feel more comfortable starting to like push the grades?
Yeah, it all boils down to that. Like, don't climb what you can't down climb. Yeah, so yeah, you're always staying within your sort of your means. I think like some of the things it's just sort of always like you're not going to be able to do everything on every given day. And I've walked up to climbs and bluebird days and looked at it, going, yeah, not feeling it. You go do something else, and then gone and done the same climb in absolutely horrific conditions, like snowing like mad, and you're not dealing with Abbey hazard, but just the really abysmal conditions that you can get in the Rockies, high winds and just nasty stuff. And gone out and climbed something and had fun, and where like everything felt right. I think it's knowing that it's sort of like I guess listening to your body, listening to sort of the environment, and it is being able to make that sort of decision. Like you're climbing up something, and at some time and point, you just have that, oh, I don't want to be here, or I shouldn't be here. It's just knowing that plug some gear in and get down. I think for a lot of the ice routes that I've done, they're thick, so like trying to put screws in anywhere at any point is fairly easy. You get the big flow ice out here, so you know what you're getting into. So having that option is always there. So it's not like you are getting on like super sketchy terrain going once you start up, you're committed. So having that back out option, I think that's always something that's in play. And I think, yeah, like the Indian Creek analogy, that was sort of in the ideal situations, like you've gone, you've rehearsed the climb, and it's just, it's comfortable, exactly, it's just repetitive move after move all the way up. Like rock climbing, it's sort of the holds are where they are, so you know them. Like you just have to repeat those sequences. And then ice is just sort of that, it's a variable, it changes every day. So it is having to sort of you're constantly evaluating the situation. You can climb the same climb day after day, and it's different each time. So you climb it differently each time. I think like having that focus to be able to adapt to those conditions has been good. And I think it's if you can calm the brain down to sort of focus on that, there is that sort of it's not a relative level of safety, but it's just the decision making process is there, and it's just sort of going, okay, like ice isn't good, and then making those calls. And yeah, with when things do go wrong, it's knowing how to get out of those situations. So yeah, the one day it was 75 feet up 100-foot route, trailing my line, and cleaned off a small block that turned into a big block and chopped the rope. And that was oh shit. Had I been able to get off the top of the route, I would have continued. But having one rope and not having that option, it was just like, well, I can do a whole pile of very, very short wraps off of off of no threads, or I can try down climbing. And that was the big eye opener going, okay, I've just climbed something really hard. Can I actually put my head to it to retrace my steps or down climb? And I down climbed most of it, not in what I climbed up. So it was taxing. But when I found the actual line that I went up, I'm like, oh, this is actually really nice. Because I wasn't having to create new pick placements. And so I was able to sort of work my way down pretty quickly. But when I got to the ground, I'm like, it was quite enjoying. A lot more of a mental challenge, but like it was just like, okay, like I know I haven't pushed the boundaries. At no point did I feel nervous or unsafe on it, but was very aware that I wasn't on the same line down as I was going up. So it was just like being very cautious or very delicate with what I was doing. Everything was very methodical. And yeah, that was sort of the big going, okay, like I can keep my shit together when things do go sideways. I've had like some pretty nasty chunks of ice fall, like where I've released on me, going, oh, that really hurt. And it's just you hit that don't panic switch, and you just sort of let it go by and like deal with the pain. And then like if it's really bad, you get down, or if you're feeling okay, you continue up. But yeah, I think as long as that means is there that allows you to sort of see what's going on and reassess those situations. Like there's always that like that very, very small safety net that you have. I have done a couple climbs where I've pushed past, not by choice, or I guess it was by choice, but I committed to a move, and then it was that, oh shit, I can't back off. I think that was the sort of the real eye opener, going like, can I actually keep my shit together and not have something happen? And what looked like really good ice was just a veneer that was detached. So having to climb 50 feet of next to nothing you're basically just sort of scraping through the rock or through the ice. And anytime I could find an edge to put a cramp on or a tool on the rock, I was like, okay, sweet. Like I feel more confident now. But yeah, like that was that's like, did I bite off more than I can chew? Is this the point where I don't want to, or I should stop soling? And it was weird because the fear wasn't there, but it was just that, okay, things just got really real, like any mistake and it's game over. And I topped out on it. At no point was I afraid, but that awareness going, it could have been really bad. And there was no, like I had some pins and some beaks and some screws on me. So it's not like wasn't prepared for having to use something, leave something, but not being able to actually use any of it was just that, oh yeah, like I think that was a turning point, going, okay, like I sort of value what I've got to value my friends and all that. And that was like your life flashes in front of your eyes in like seconds of everything that you've done. And like when I wrapped down, I still went and did another bunch of routes that day. But I think I really eyed, and it's just the really weird conditions last year. So like the rest of the things that I did that day, I'm like, there's lots of ice. My eyes opened up a second time, but it was very much like shut things down, concentrate on what you need to do, and keep going. I think it was something that sort of, I knew it was going to happen at some time and point. It's always like, those are always those situations where I guess you try to avoid at all costs, but inevitably it will happen. Like had there not been a chunk of ice in the one spot on that route, I probably would have been, oh yeah, I'll pass. Like I know it's not in. And whereas I was looking at it, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a lot of ice, but I'm just like, that lot of ice was a couple mil thick for a long way, where I had expected it to be quite a bit thicker. But yeah, so that was sort of some of the scary stuff with where like you're just like really trying to keep the head together.
It's hard to figure out exactly what you took away from that climb, actually, because it seems like it was within your limits, like well within your limits, right? It was scary, but you've been on similar terrain, presumably probably on rope or something like that. So it didn't seem like you were, the skill was beyond you. It was the mental component and the unexpectedness of it. And there seems to be this sort of methodical progression where you were almost prepared for it. And so you had the tools mentally to be able to just sort of lock down and climb it. But I guess I go back to my original question because it didn't seem to phase you for the rest of your day. So I don't know, how would you approach that differently next time? Like, presumably you have binoculars and things like that to evaluate.
Yeah, that is actually, it was actually a climb that I'd done 30 years ago, like up in Thunder Bay. And
Oh,
like the last time I climbed it, it was a massive pillar at the top. And that was climbed with bad tools, bad screws. But yeah, like grade 4 to grade 5 in challenging conditions. And this was not, it was neither grade. It was probably like 5 plus 6. But yeah, like the upper portion of this thing just really, they say it was weird because it looked like it was in enough to be climbed. But yeah, I think it's always the very mentally prepared for everything, and everything's very methodical. It's like there's no wasted movements. Like when I'm climbing, I'm always relaxed. You're trying to conserve energy all the way up, so I don't swing a lot or very hard. So it's just
wasn't anything to swing into, it doesn't sound like.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so yeah, I've developed the scratching technique as per Stas, and it's interesting getting onto terrain that's like that because those are those areas where like there is no, like some of them there's no safety net, like there is no backing off, like you're committed to things. But it's I really try to minimize some of those routes unless sure I can make a couple moves like that, but if I'm looking at 10, 20, 30 moves in a row that are like that, then I would probably pass and wait till the climb's in better shape. Or there's a couple things that I did. I'm like, I backed off. I'm like, if I had a rope on this, I would probably go and do it. And like the consequences of a fall with a rope are going to be just as bad as without.
Sort of false confidence.
It is, yeah. And what I've noticed over the years with like a lot of the ice climbers, like I grew up with the you don't fall. Like falling's not an option. Like you do not test your gear. I'm still by that standard. It's like, have I fallen on ice screws? Like, yep, 4 or 5 times in 30 years. And it's not because I'm pumped, it's because something's let go. Like whether it's like something I'm standing on or a tool placement on garbage ice has gone. But like to see people these days, like, oh, I fell on this screw on this route today. I'm like, and it's like nonchalantly.
Like
And
glorifying it almost.
yeah, and it's just it's that glorified, and it's like, oh, like it's like this is what happened. And it's like, it's like, so somebody didn't teach you properly, or you sort of pushed your boundaries. And I think like it's like back like I guess like 20, 30 years ago, ice climbing was a fringe sport, and there weren't that many people into it. So when you were learning from people, like that was like one of the things that was first drilled into you when you started to lead. It was just like start easy, climb easy things for as long as it is necessary to learn how to put pro in, get on slightly steeper things, do the same thing. And whereas now, because the equipment's so good and you get the rock climbing crowd that's getting out into ice climbing, it's a different medium, but they figure the strength will get them through, even though they don't have the technical skill sets to do things properly. And I think having that no fall ethic and being sort of hypercritical with thinking and doing things it's kept me alive, I guess. And I've looked at some routes that have looked really cool and just going, yeah, maybe with a rope and a partner, but solo, the consequences are too high to try and push something. And it is funny because like the rope is that false confidence of going, shit's going to go sideways like if you fall off with a rope on. Having that rope there is just that, okay, at least I feel a little bit safer.
But fundamentally, it shouldn't matter, right? I mean,
No.
you should be approaching it the same way. Not that I have a very, very, very little experience soloing, but I guess there's an element of like truth taking and truth measuring with yourself, and in the face of soloing something, you have to be 100% or damn well close, right? I mean, you can't bullshit yourself.
No.
and it's almost like with a rope you can kind of give yourself a little bit of that bullshit.
Yep.
I wonder for you, like do you think you're on like honest, like self-honest? Is that something that you feel that you've always had? And I don't know if you would describe it that way, but like there is this, you have to be very self-evaluative and critical and, I mean, honest, like just to be redundant.
Yeah. And I am very honest with myself, and it's really weird because like trying to answer that, it's hard. It's almost like that loaded question.
It is a
But
loaded question, so I
yeah,
apologize for that. I don't.
yeah, all good. But it's I am very sort of critical thinking when it comes to that. So with like everything I've done over the sport, like the various sports, it's always been like the same sort of thought processes. It's like if I do this, what are the consequences? So it's always sort of the following everything down, and I think it's accepting the consequences of something going wrong, and like I feel really bad if I went and died. And it's not for me, but for like all my friends and family. My thought process, if I'm not feeling 100%, is always it's a no go. Like the whole evaluating and reevaluating. So I'm never. My mind is very calm, but it's always thinking about everything on every second that I'm doing something. Yeah, I'm aware of all of the things that can go wrong, and I will take responsibility for things going wrong. Like so, if it happens, I would say I'd feel really bad if I had things go wrong, and just what that will do to friends and family. I sort of look at it is if I've made a mistake or if things have gone wrong, like with the work that I do with suspension work and bikes and like a lot of the jobs, it's that analyzing the process like start to finish. It's like mistakes do happen, like they're I guess they're minimal, but in the soloing world, it's just that like there is no room for a mistake if you're not like 100% certain of you, the environment. It's that no brainer. You just sort of like you don't do it, and it's like knowing when to walk away. I've taken my ice tools for many walks. That sort of gives you the appreciation. It's the I love doing it for the purity that it is. And I think being like I said, most of the sports that I've done, I've always gravitated towards the individual activities. There's no one to blame except for yourself if things don't go your way or if something goes wrong. I sort of look at it that approach where like I'm not like I sort of know my limitations with how far I can push things, but it's also knowing you're dealing with the ice conditions are like the temperature, and it's factoring all that into it and making sure everything aligns to be able to sort of make things, I guess, safe enough for that given day.
There is like a truth in the experience of being completely focused on what you're doing, that climb, right? There's no adulteration. It's just you processing the stimuli and being completely connected with it, right? Like and holistic. It seems incredibly like primal. You might also call it flow. There are probably all other ways to describe it. Is that how you experience it? Because it does seem like it's like this universal sort of human experience that we seek. At least it's one way to get it.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've done a lot of extreme sports. It's funny people call climbing an extreme sport. The like sure injuries happen and everything, but there's so many other things that can lead to much bigger injuries. So when climbing is done safely, like I don't think it's extreme. And so yeah, if you take out the adrenaline side, so you get rid of the adrenaline junkies and you're in it for yourself. It's you are in the moment doing everything. There's no noise around you. Like you hear your heartbeat. It's the weirdest thing because it's just you're attuned to everything that's around you. I guess you're so focused on that bubble that's around you. It's yeah, like flow state or the zone. The movements just sort of come very naturally, and things are fluid. Even when you're struggling, it's sort of you're very sort of in tune with everything. I never get the high, like runner's highs and stuff like that, where it's just like it's sort of the adrenaline kick. it's not there. So it's just like everything's at peace. I say I've had those moments, and it's like you get a disruption when things go wrong. Drop a rope or you pass a boundary, and it's like a little blip, and you're like, okay, as long as you reset back to that zone, it's just nothing really sort of seems to phase you. And I think, and it doesn't really matter if you're on like really, really hard climbs or really easy climbs. And for me, I've gotten up on like really easy things and going, this is just not right. And like you just don't have that flow, and come down. But I think like when you find it, it's a different world. Like nothing, I say it's one of those things like nothing else really matters except for that moment. I guess, yeah, like it's very primal. Like you're there surviving, knowing that if something goes wrong, that could be the end. And I never really think about it that way, but it's just the energies are there, that it's just sort of like, it's that pushing sort of making you move up, but in a very, like it's a high state of awareness. And I think it is just like, it's, yeah, body positioning, foot plate, and like it's moving. Everything's got to sort of mesh together. Like I'll take a breath, I'll make a move. I remember like having the adrenaline rushes on like pushing hard sport routes or gear routes. It was very different because like I found like the pump factor was always there. With what I do now, it's just like the pump factor's not there, and I don't tense up with anything. It's just sort of, you go, and it's like every move is a relaxing move, even when it's not. Yeah, it's a very different experience.
From reading accounts of Alex Lowe, who would just like sprint up climbs, because when you talk about it, it sounds very meditative, and the locus of control is internal. It's very just sort of like within you. And I'm not saying that Alex Lowe didn't have that, but it's a different speed, and so just by the sheer nature of your body, like in your state, you're breathing deeply from the diaphragm, and that has a very calming response.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. Alex Lowe was actually he was probably my idol when I got into ice climbing back in the day. It was actually really cool to sort of follow his antics, and really neat to actually get on a bunch of the routes that he put up in the last couple of years. And like some stuff I was like, I'm like, this is going to be terrifying. You get on, it's like, oh, it's actually not bad, or it's not as scary as originally thought to be. I think the thought process, moving slowly, efficiently, I find it very calming that way. And I think that's where like the freedom or the freeness comes from. It's just like everything is very, you're like, I'm not out to break records. Like I'm totally not into the whole fast times and stuff like that. I have gone up things really quickly, but it's not an enjoyable process for me. And whereas I find just getting out and just, it's like you're getting out and smelling the roses in a different form, and you're just taking your time. You're enjoying the moment. I think like there's times where you do have to move quickly, but if you can sort of minimize the overheads and like the stuff that's like not in your control, like that moving slowly or like fluidly is just, I enjoy that a lot more. Like I remember I went up Professor Falls last spring, it was about 20 minutes from bottom to top. I was out of breath the entire way. It was basically me getting to the top of the climb to go look at something else, as opposed to actually climbing the climb. So and there was a party behind me that had come up just behind me, and I was like, give me 5 minutes, I'll be off the first pitch. And I think they were on the third pitch, and I was already back down to them, and I was still recovering. I was still breathing hard. And one guy I knew, and he's like, "Oh, how long did that take you?" I was like, "Oh, about 20 minutes." But yeah, I was just gassed, and it wasn't enjoyable. But I'm just like, "Oh, it's cool," but it's not at all like the way I normally climb. But I'm just like, I just wanted to get up there to see something like for a possible.
It's just utility.
Yeah. And but yeah, I just remember going down, and it was just I got back on my bike, rode back. I'm like, I didn't have a good day, but it was nice being
Ah,
out
okay.
there, and the climb was super fun. But I'm just like, it was rushed,
Yeah.
and I think with soloing, like for me, it's not rushed. It's the enjoyment of the environment and being outside. And
Do you need it then? Like if you don't have that experience for a while, does your experience on the day-to-day shift?
oh yeah, I feel like absolutely, I
Okay.
feel
Yeah,
like crap.
I'll just say for like myself, I ruptured my Achilles a few years ago, and so I was basically out for like a year of physical activity. I was a miserable bastard. I couldn't do anything, and I was just so depressed. But that's a very different experience, right? That's sort of like just getting to baseline.
I definitely feel if I miss it, I miss it. I too, if I tore my bicep off a couple of years ago, and it was like start of COVID, so it was about a year and a half of recovery time. I was pretty miserable for the first bit. I've had so many injuries over the years that I've learned to sort of cope with them. Some are like they're season enders, so you're like, oh yeah, shit happens. Just deal with it, and so you try and find something to pass the time. But I have a hard time sitting still. I have a really hard time taking rest days. Like unless it's a forced rest day, and you're like, okay, I physically can't do something, then I'll try to find something to keep my mind occupied. But yeah, the missing days was it's always hard, but I always find like if I sort of fill it doing other things. If it keeps me from being sedentary, like I'm happy. Like I take a rest day now, and my body just explodes. It's in so much pain, and I figure if I keep going, like I that pain just sort of disappears, and it's just like the you're always moving, so like the muscles don't tend to seize up quite as quickly. But yeah, as soon as you let your body relax, you're just like, I feel like absolute garbage. And yeah, so typically, like if I'm having a rest day or having to take time off, I'll still try to fill that void with something else. Sometimes it's drinking a lot of coffee and being very jittery because of it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do. I have just an insane time not doing things.
Along the lines of injury and potentially injury prevention, slash, if you just keep going, maybe your muscles never recognize they're injured. Uh, I've had a few comments admiring your capacity to still climb quite hard as an aging athlete. And maybe you don't feel comfortable being referred to in that light, but a few people have put it in
Yeah,
that particular terms. There's the side where you don't train. But I guess how do you manage to climb hard and balance all of this so that you're not getting injured, but you also are able to maintain that level?
yeah. I think the whole. I think the joke with the aging climber is I'm usually climbing with people that I can be their fathers, and it's actually I don't take things too seriously, so I think part of that goes with the whole no climbing or the no training. But as you get older, your body doesn't recover anywhere near as quick. Everything starts to sag, and I think the more I train, the skinnier I get. And so if I want to increase muscle mass, it just goes the opposite way. And like my diet just doesn't allow for bulk. I do indulge in the odd non-healthy snack, but for the most part, it's always a healthy diet. And I'm trying to listen to my body as much as I can. Like last weekend, we had a Team Canada like ice climbing meetup for the first time, and
Oh, cool.
at one of the areas, like we ended up going to a different area, and I'm like I usually go here once a year, and there's nothing there that's like overly hard, and it's just like it's actually really nice to go and pull on jugs. I was like super tired, but I'm like I'm gonna go up there, and it was actually really fun because I was gassed, and I was a little bit taxed on a couple of routes, but I'm like it's just sort of the right amount of exercise for how tired I was. And I didn't push it like I wasn't didn't really break a sweat on anything, and it was such an enjoyable day because I just got to hang out, watch people, and got to play with the laser pointer because I was sort of the walking beta person. So it was nice. Like it was just I got just enough exercise for the day to sort of fill my exercise quota for the day. And I think had I not done that, I would have been like at home going, man, I hate my life. My body's not working. I've had to do a little bit more stretching as I've gotten older. I was always really bad with that. It was just like, oh yeah, I go do something hard, come home, and you forget to stretch, or it'd be like that morning stretching routine or evening stretching routine. And now that I'm actually starting to do that, like some of the aches and pains are a lot more manageable. I think with not like the whole like not training, and yeah, it is that running joke where if the people I'm climbing with are catching up, I'll go and train for a day. But that which really pisses them off. But I've just learned to hold on and relax and have a smile on my face. I think the whole like growing up in a competitive environment for many years, that just sort of led to that rebelling against training, because it was just that, oh, I've got to train to be better, faster, stronger. I think climbing, I enjoy it more as a personal thing as opposed to the competitive side. I've pushed hard grades over the years, and like my hard rock days are over. Like if I can climb into it's funny, like 512 is a normal grade out here for everybody. It's like I've climbed harder than that, but now I'm like, oh yeah, as long as I'm happy in the 510 to 512 range where I can still work hard on some of the harder stuff, but I enjoy it for the enjoyment. So I don't want to have to go, I've got to put X number of hours in the gym and push things to be able to hit a grade. And it's weird this year because like pretty much just been climbing like up to 511. I just bolted a new line. That's second pitch of I just left it as 512 because I'm really not sure of the grade, like if it's an A, B, or a C. But I held on through the crux going, yeah, this is freaking hard. And my buddy was just like, he's in the mid 11 range, and he sort of maxes out, and he's like, I am never even going to try this because I cannot hold the move. Like there's like absolutely no way right now. And we're both climbing equally as much. He is starting to train a little bit, but for me, it's just the enjoyment of going out and doing stuff. If it is something that I really want to climb, I'll go put some time in it to just get that little bit of extra endurance or finger strength to be able to hold on. But I think, yeah, I really try to keep the real competitive side out. And I think with the training, as soon as I start looking at that, I'm just like, okay, here comes the competitive side, which I don't want to do anymore. I like helping people train, but yeah, I'm just like, I just want to go and climb. I want to go have fun. It's weird because it's not about pushing grades. Like I'm equally happy on something easy as I am something hard. And it's just being outside and enjoying the time with friends or the time alone. And that's been the appreciation over the years with like health issues, injuries, like mental things. That was like, I think just being able to go and relax and have fun. I think that was sort of the big going at. It's like, I don't need to perform to what I used to be able to do, or it's just if I happen to get on something and tick something really hard, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Like it's a great day, but it's like, it's not a be all end all. That being said, I do have routes that I would really like to do. So
Yeah, well, that is one of the tensions. So I can understand because you also have a no projecting policy,
yeah,
which we can get into. But my buddy was always saying like, I just want to be able to climb like 511 trad because you can go anywhere in the world and like
yeah,
get on some really
totally.
amazing routes. I've heard in mixed climbing that you get to D11, you don't really need to go much harder because you're not going to experience that in these bigger mountains. Like you know how to climb, you can climb hard, you can hang on long enough, so like you can sort of go to like it's like the 80-20 principle, right?
Yeah.
But inevitably there will be some climbs that catch your eye, it might be above your pay grade, and like I wonder how you remedy that tension.
Yeah, those will be like, I'll actually put a day or two in. And back when I was climbing hard back in the day, like I'm probably climbing a lot stronger now. I don't know if it's because I've climbed so many things over the years where now I just go and I enjoy it instead of going, oh, I've got to go and knock this climb off. Climbs are always there. Like I'll get on if it doesn't go. Next time I'm in the area, I'll hop back on it if the desire's there. Like I did a monster link up last month of 3 routes, and I'm like, I have no idea what the grade is. Like one of my routes into another line that I'm glad it got put up because it means I didn't have to put a couple bolts into another line. Somebody was like, "Oh, is that like D13?" I'm like, "No, I don't think so." Like, there's a D13 at the crag. My second go, I'm halfway up it without much effort. So I'm just like trying to sort of wage, and mine's more like the thing that I linked up is like this monster enduro thing. I'm like, I have no idea what the grade is. Like, there's big moves on it, and it's like my route's like 10 plus 11 range, and then it just sort of it just keeps going, and like sort of the link ups between the three different routes are big. It was just okay, like I can hold on to them, and it's just like, well, if I can get to the final portion of the route, it gets over. Like I can rest my whole way up, and it's just crazy steep. And I'm like, my feet are on, I can hold on. I think as long as I can sort of recover on things, and if I'm doing like figure sequences, they get taxing after a while. Like you can do so many of them, and you're like, oh crap, I got to move fast, or I'm going to fall off. But as soon as my foot touches something, I can relax. And so it is like there's stuff down in Ure that I'd like to go do. So if I make it down there this year, gave Brian O'Leary 8 months notice that he has to send his project before I come back and send it on him. Everything's just like I find that I go and I just go have fun on things. Yeah, like some of the really hard stuff, they look so cool. So I'm like, if I'm in the area, I'm gonna go check it out. And if I flail miserably, I had fun flailing miserably.
So you'll at least jump on it and just
oh yeah,
give
totally.
it a try.
Yeah, and you never know. Like it's like some of the stuff you get on, you're just like, oh, this is totally my style of climbing, and you walk through it. And other stuff, you're like, this is really freaking hard, but it's really cool, so I'm gonna put some effort into it. It is one of those things. If I'm at an area where I've got the time, I don't make it a must do. Like I'll go get on it, I'll work the moves. If it's within realm of me being able to put it down really quickly, I'll give it a couple tries and see how it goes. I'll come back and see if I can piece everything together. And then I just find there's so many things out there that being like with limited time available in my schedule, like I guess if all I was doing like full time was climbing, where I had copious amounts of time, it would be awesome. I could actually go, yeah, I'm going to go spend a week or 2 weeks projecting this thing so I can send it. But there's so many things out there that I think the grades for me just become, they're really cool. The hard stuff is awesome, but it's irrelevant. Like I just want to go out and climb as much as I can and have fun on things. And some of the aesthetics of some of the lines, you're just like, holy crap, like just mind blowing when you're looking at some of these things. And I climbed some like grade 3, grade 4 routes down in Cody it was just the position. I was just like, I was blown away. I'm like, easy climbing, but I was just like in awe. Like you're climbing in like slot chimney or slot canyons, and you're just like looking around going, you don't see this very often. Like I had as much fun doing that as I did getting on like some WI6 6+ horror show. And then same with like the dry tooling stuff. I'm just like, there's been routes I'm like, you get on, you're like, oh yeah, like it's the accurate grade, but it wasn't fun. And then I think if you get that mix where everything just sort of flows together, you're just like, oh, this is like, it's one of those things that totally worth putting a day or two of effort into it. And I know if I'm not strong enough for something, like I'm not going to put my time into it. And that'll be okay, I'll do a little bit more climbing and try it again on my next go. And if there's progression there and it feels comfortable, I'll put a couple days. But yeah, I won't go and specifically train for climbs. Like I just
a day here and there.
Yeah. And
just as the mood strikes.
Yeah, exactly.
So speaking of Brian and his project, which the clock is ticking, Brian, you're friends with the Forecast guys, and I just saw that they unveiled their full lineup. So 3 new tools and slightly modified Nor'easter, it sounds like, to make it slightly lighter. What is your role with them? Because you seem pretty tight with them all. Are you helping with product development?
They take my feedback. So yeah, helping out a little bit with with some of the prototypes, just suggestions on grip positioning and all that. And it was pretty cool because like the Meso, like the new sort of 3-position tool, like the one that's being released is very similar to one of the prototypes, but the size of the grips, like the height and sort of the width have changed a little bit. So that was sort of stuff that we were playing with on the last prototype. And it was like, yeah, we should do this, we should do this. And so yeah, that's become the tool that's coming to market. And then yeah, with sort of some of the designs, like we're sort of like that's sort of a work in progress. But it is pretty cool to sort of go, we should do this, we should do this, try things out. So it's just like you just take the file out or the grinder out and have at it to make modifications to see how things work. Yeah, so basically with Forecast, I'm one of their athletes. All started out when I bought a set of the Norex handles a couple of years ago, and from there it went to Nor'easters, and now it's Nor'easters, Mesos, and Jetstreams. And all the tools, like they're phenomenal. They've all got a very distinct application for me, but they do all climb ice really well. It's cool to see like the Nor'easters. They've just had a bunch of material taken off, so they are significantly lighter than the original versions. Yeah, they're comparable to like the Petzl and the Extreme, like probably a couple grams heavier, but not much. And like I would pay that weight penalty in a heartbeat for the fact that it is a very structured. I've done some really dumb things with my Extremes and they're still straight, whereas I'd be very afraid to see the results of doing those same things with an Extreme or a Nomic. Yeah,
you mean you've done crazy things with your Forecast?
Yeah.
Okay,
and yeah, so it's just having that CNC tool. It just they're bomb proof. There's no flex in them. And yeah, like I've put them into torques and started with the tool above my head and having it down to my waist by the time I'm done and like not even thinking about it.
Damn.
This is good. It's solid. And but yeah, I was just like, it's sort of been mind blowing to sort of see what a small project has become, and with the number of different tools that are being released this year. Yeah, I swear by them. It's sort of like they are probably there's a bunch of tools, but like the Nor'easter and Forecast Nor'easters were probably the closest one tool to do everything and do everything well.
Looking at the side by side, I'm really actually struck by the geometry now, because at least in this picture, and I don't know if it's stock or not, but it has a really short beak.
Yeah.
And you can see that like holding the second position, there's going to be almost like no movement between that and the first. And I actually didn't realize, just given the length of the pick on the Nor'easter, you would actually get a significant amount of sort of difference pull out, I guess, going from like the second to first position.
Yeah, and it's and I've climbed some pretty hard routes with the Nor'easters, and I run the short picks for dry tooling.
Oh, okay.
And it is nice because they're all interchangeable. And say if you wanted one tool to do everything, like the Nor'easter is awesome because you put an ice pick on it or a mix pick, and you've got your ice and mix tool. If you want a dry tool on it, you put the short comp pick on. There's very little pick shift, like on the Nor'easter with like one of the short picks. Like the Meso and the Strato are definitely more of the comp style. Realistically, like the Strato would be your full blown comp tool. Like it's not like you're really going to climb ice with it. It's like not to say you can't, but the geometry on that is very akin to other tools. And then like the Meso, like with the three positions, that's been sort of what I've been tearing up for the last couple months. And the size of the moves that you can make when you're on the third position on it, it's unbelievable. I would say you'd want like a nice pocket to be used to make a big move, but I've gone off some pretty sketchy small edges and small in cuts that in huge move, I'm going, well, it actually felt okay. And the pick shift, I say, it is very minimal for how high up that third position is. But yeah, having that flexibility to flip your hands around on the tool on 3 points and being very stable on all of them is pretty phenomenal. Like Brian's project is the correct sequence is every position on that tool gets used. So if you had just a 2-position tool, like it's just having to make that high grip work and not having the stability of the trigger to pad your hand. So yeah, that was like it's incredible to sort of see. And like the Meso actually does climb ice pretty well. Marty and I went and when we got them, put the ice picks on them and went to Pont Rouge and did an ice climb. And I'm like, they're actually pretty, like they work. But for me, that's like, it's strictly my dry tooling tool. But it is very, very cool to sort of see the interchangeability of the tools and what you can climb. And then the Jetstream, sort of classic Northeastern traditional style tool, it climbs incredibly well, super lightweight. It's a little bit shorter than the other tools, so it's back to your standard tool length, the same length as an Extreme or a Nomic. I've climbed up to the grade 5+6 with it, and it's got that old traditional feeling. Like it works well on bulges with the clearance on the shaft. Yeah, so like swinging into like sort of classic big ice lines or like easier mixed terrain is really good. And then like alpine climbing, like you've got a solid tool. So yeah, that'll pretty much be like the go-to for big days out, easier climbs. And then like traditional go-to is just going to be the Nor'easter for anything technical, just because it is such a great tool. Now it's a couple grams lighter, it's even better. But yeah, so I basically been emailing, texting with the boys it was a good year before actually meeting them out east on my Eastern Tear last year. And it was like a bunch of brothers getting together for the first time in years. So really hit it off, and great bunch of guys, all very passionate about the stuff that they're doing and how far they've come along with the tool development. And it is really cool to sort of see out west. There's not a lot of forecast tools. There's a few floating around, but out east, like they're everywhere. Sort of hoping to push that market further west in the future. But I do like the cool, funky colors too, so it makes the tools really stand out.
Yeah, they definitely know how to do branding.
Yeah.
Who do you think should get more recognition in the climbing community that hasn't?
Oh God, Sarah Lilly. She's young and just crazy strong. I think she did the Edmonton Cup last year. Awesome person. I've seen her progression over the years, and it's insane to sort of see she's just sort of exploded. Like her and her boyfriend Leif Denby, he's got some fastest known times kicking around, but just like another human lung. And but just cool people do rad shit. They don't get a lot of spotlight. Like Leif has had some he's starting to hang around with some of the bigger boys, so it's pretty cool to sort of see.
This the last question. This is one we had from the beginning. Is if you were to give your younger self one piece of beta, what would that be?
Listen to your parents and don't do dumb shit. Live your life, like take it as it goes. There's good days, bad days. Just deal with it as best as possible and enjoy the moment. I've definitely missed out on a lot of stuff over the years. Would I change like my upbringing for that? Probably not. Like I grew up in doing sports, so I really miss the social side growing up. And being introverted, it was like, I don't know, like I don't talk to a lot of people, so I don't like big crowds. So that didn't really bother me too much, but it's hindered me over times because I'd be the person that's standing over in a corner not talking to anybody. So I do find that a little bit harder, but yeah, I would just sort of like, I wouldn't change who I am or if I could go back 40 years, I'm very happy with what I did. But yeah, I would say listen to my parents and not do dumb shit.
Thanks, parents.
Yeah. Parents have kept me a happy person. So I can't say enough about my parents and how awesome they have been to raising me and allowing me to do the things that I've been able to do. Yeah, it's just like live life to the fullest and enjoy every day as if it could be your last, because bad things happen and you just sort of want to want to enjoy, I guess, enjoy everything as much as you can.
Seems like you are.
Yeah.
Well, JC, thank you very much for chatting today.
Yeah. Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, it was awesome.
You can follow JC on Instagram at JC Dubeau, all one word. Dubeau is spelled Dubeau. As always, thank you to Hannah Noel for providing intro music and Andrew Solomon for editing. Thanks for listening, and see you next week for our final episode of Season 2.